Hi, and welcome to this week's This is Gravel. I'm Bobby Thompson, the casual cyclist. This is Leland Dane sitting here next to me.
Hello.
We've had an exciting last couple of weeks. Leland, what's going on in your life?
Well, the temperatures have definitely been getting warmer, but we pay the price here with some strong south winds. We've been on a couple rides recently where just staying upright was the challenge, so that's always fun.
We're going to talk about the gravel season is coming up. We just got done with the land run. We're going to be talking about maybe training for some events you want to do this year. Maybe you want to do some formal training to complete a specific speed-related goal. Maybe you just want to know how to survive that big event that you got planned on your bucket list and you haven't ridden a bike in 10, 15 years. I wouldn't know of anyone like that. That's where I definitely was about 4 years ago and saw a bunch of people failing on the Dirty Kansas and thought, you know what, I want to try to do that myself. Can I survive that? It looks totally unbelievably tough. So,
Yeah, I mean, don't let the word training scare you for sure. Training is simply preparation, whether you're preparing to finish like you talked about or you're preparing to hit some goals, some new goals you may have set for yourself to race the sun or something that nature, which I know it's kind of bad juju to talk about sometimes, but Bobby, you are going for that coveted race of the sun at this year's Dirty Kansas, and so I know you've been really changing your preparation from the approach you took 4 years ago.
Yeah, I did. I was going to quietly set for myself the goal of racing the sun at some point in my life. But last year, I started doing a little bit more formal training and carried that on into this year and thought, I do have a very active family life. My wife, Carrie, is very supportive, but there are only so many hours in a day and so many days in a week. So I thought, well, if I'm doing this increased riding amount anyway, then maybe I better make this the year that I give it a shot. I don't know what's going to come up next year, and this year's looking pretty good so far, so we're going to give it a run and see what happens. Even with all the increased riding I've done, I'll tell you, it still looks unbelievably tough to try to do that. Just racing, getting done with the land run, this is the best I have felt in obviously ever riding the bike, and the land run still felt pretty tough for me. Miles 60 to 80, I was pretty worn out.
Well, as Greg LeMond had famously said, cycling doesn't get any easier, it just gets faster. So the guys at the front of the pack might be done a little bit sooner, but they're working hard. They're not slacking off. So, but like I said, regardless of what your goals are, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about a lot of training concepts, not only in this episode, but throughout the year. There's a lot of different things to cover. So the main thing is just to get out there and enjoy being on your bike. There's no substitute for having fun with what you're doing. Whether it's starting out with a beginner's group ride or joining a local Tuesday Night Worlds type of ride, which we've got around here. Don't be afraid to get outside of your comfort level. If you're really aiming for some lofty goals, don't be afraid to ride with people that are faster than you. Actually, that's going to be a great benefit for you. So.
There's a lot of a lot of thinking on that, different approaches to that you can think about too. Last year I did the Tuesday Night World Ride twice, and ego-wise it was very hard for me to accept that the first couple of hills we came to, I lost touch with the group and I was riding by myself. So my first instinct thought was, well, if I'm going to ride by myself anyway, I might as well just go solo and not even show up for the thing. What I've learned this year in riding in the Tuesday Night Worlds is it's not just about the ego getting dropped, it's learning how to ride with a group and learning how to use that group to help you ride. You can get a heck of a lot further in a race faster if you're working with other people. And that's probably been my main difference this year is learning how to work with other riders while I'm out there, whether it's 5 miles, 10 miles, 50 miles into a ride. learning how to catch up and ride with somebody?
Yeah, well, it can be transcendent to be out there in the middle of the Flint Hills, for example, at the Dirty Cans, and to be completely on your own. That's a very special occasion. And even if you set out to ride with others, you're probably going to find yourself alone at some points. But no matter what your goals are, to ride with others for the majority of events like this is just going to help you either make the cutoffs, if that's what you're trying to do, or beat the sun. What some viewers might not know about Bobby, though, is last fall we'd started up some Thursday morning rides, and just having been able to watch Bobby's progression just over the last 6 months, we actually named a section of road Bobby Boulevard, because Bobby would pull through way too hard and then promptly drop himself when he came off the front because he had used up all his matches. But within just a few of those rides, as Bobby not only got stronger but got smarter, not only was he taking pulls repeatedly, but he was staying in that group and last until the end. So those are the types of learning experiences and the lumps you kind of have to take as you go along.
Number one fan. I'm going to give him a t-shirt right here.
So with that said, I've talked about, I've got a little 5 tips for you for training. And this is kind of a beginner's approach, a general outline of how you should tackle your training. So training for epic gravel grinders, long distance rides is no small feat. And everyone wants to know how many miles should they be putting in, or how much intensity and intervals should they be doing. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that and hopefully try to answer some of those questions. The first thing everyone needs to understand, though, is that training is very specific to the individual. So just because something works for one person doesn't necessarily mean that's going to work for all. So today I want to identify 5 key principles that will helpfully get you started on your training journey. The first one is goal setting. You have to identify what it is that you're wanting to accomplish. Are you trying to simply survive the Dirty Kansas? Just trying to make that finish line at all costs? You can get away with a little bit less. If you're aiming for something a little bit more, like racing the sun, then you're going to need to put in some dedicated training. So identify what it is that you want realistically, and then figure out the steps to achieve those. Number 2 is overload and progression. The overload is doing more than you're currently capable of. If you want to ride 100 miles, then you need to take those little steps and start to overload your body to get there. So that's making the body hurt, making it feel uncomfortable. And depending on where you're starting, that might be a 5-mile ride, it might be a 50-mile ride. Again, that goes back to setting your goals and understanding where you're starting from. But you have to overload the body. And you have to do it progressively. If 5 miles hurts the first few weeks, then you progress up to 10 miles. Or if you're doing 50 miles, you go to 60 or 75-mile rides as you start to get better. Because what used to be an overload, your body has adapted to, and it's no longer hurting you as much. Number 3 is intensity. So when you're overloading your body, there's a couple ways you can achieve that. You can go further and ride longer, or you can increase the effort. And that's the real question a lot of people have, is how many miles should I be doing and how hard should I be going? Again, as I stated earlier, it is a very individual concept, and so I can't answer that question for every single person. But what I can tell you is you can train for even the most epic events like Dirty Kansas 200 on a pretty minimal amount of training. So don't look at it as I've got to put in X amount of miles this week. Look at how much time you have available to train. The more time you have available, the more distance you can ride. The less time you have available, the more intense you need to make your workouts. And even if you're doing shorter ride times, but you're increasing that intensity and really maximizing the use of your time, you're going to get a lot of benefit from that. Number 4, this one's really important, recovery. A lot of us are coming into cycling. Rarely is it our first sport, but we probably have some type of athletic background, and we're competitors. And so we always think we need to be going, riding hard. You cannot neglect the recovery time. Your body cannot adapt. We talked about the overload earlier. You want to overload the body, but you cannot adapt to that overload without the recovery time. So make sure that you're taking periods of rest. For every 3 weeks that you ride and you're putting in big miles or big rides or high intensity, you need to take a week where you scale it back a little bit. Take a few extra days off and let that body rest and recuperate, even if you're feeling good. You need that adaptation time. And finally, number 5, this is probably the most important of all. Have fun. Remember that we're out there for whatever your personal journey is or your reasons for wanting to tackle these long gravel grinding events. The number one priority should be that it is fun for you. So whether you're coming off the couch and saying, yeah, I can do that, and you're riding 1 or 2 times per week, if you've got the mental fortitude, maybe you can see it through. Or if you're training really hard 5-6 days a week, it can become tiring and difficult. And so just always remember to have fun with it, no matter what. That trumps everything, because the moment you stop having fun, you're not going to want to be on your bike. So I know that's a general approach, but remember, training is very individual. If you have any more questions, Dirty Cans of Promotions does offer a coaching service. We have a 12-week static training plan for only $24.99, which is a great starting point. Or if you're interested for a little bit more personal attention, you can hire me as your coach. So have fun, get out there on your bike, and enjoy.
Okay, Leland, appreciate it. That was great. Always remember to, like you say, have fun on the bikes.
Yeah, again, we were talking about rides like Tuesday Night Worlds or even beginner group rides. Remember to enjoy yourself. There's a lot of resources out there that can point you in the right direction, and we'll definitely continue to talk about training tips on this show. But if you take anything away from that, get out on your bike and have fun doing it. And as you get better and progress and continue to push yourself, chime in with questions. We'd love to answer any specific questions you have, for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you next about some apps that I personally use that have kind of helped me over the couple of years to get really into cycling. And if you don't mind, I'll do a little chatter. Howdy, welcome to my shop. Earlier, Leland talked a little bit about formal training. I wanted to touch base with some of the riders who maybe this is your first time that you're going to commit to a longer event this year, whether it's the Dirty Kansas, Gravel Worlds, even Rebecca's Private Idaho. One thing that I did a couple years ago before I got into formal training this year was look for a way to motivate myself. I kept seeing pictures of friends on Facebook out riding. Here I am sitting at home, just can't quite get out there. So I looked at it and I leaned on more of the social aspect of riding. In order to do that, I started using apps for tracking my progress and tracking my routes. The one that I primarily use is Strava. Strava has a lot of social aspects to it, a lot of different options to help you get motivated to ride. One of those is the segment Explore. When you log in, you create an account on Strava, you download it to your phone or you use the computer. One thing you can do is search around your area, search around your county for segments that other riders have marked. There is a feature called King of the Mountain, where if you have the fastest time on that segment, you get your name up in bold and everything. But really what I use it for is I figure if someone has taken the time to mark a segment, then it's worth me maybe planning a route out there to see what they thought was worthy of that. Usually what I find is a nice unique hill, a unique corner that someone took. In Emporia, where I'm at, most of those segments are 20 to 30 miles outside of town. So it ends up being a nice 15 to 30 mile ride. Another thing that Strava does to kind of help motivate me is I can keep track of my own rides a lot easier. I can see where I've been, where I want to explore, and where I want to go next. The dashboard on Strava allows you to see your rides at a glance. You can also You can also search for your friends on Strava so you can see where they've been riding. A friend tells you he rode out to Road C, you don't know the exact route. Using Strava, you can plan a route to there pretty easy. One aspect that I do like of Strava is their heat maps. You can see where not only you, but the community has ridden around town, to where if you're looking for a place to go ride, you can pull up the heat map of the surrounding counties. You can see what roads have been ridden the most, and you can plan a ride out there. All of this is going to help you, I believe, plan your Saturdays better. Plan your once a week, twice a week rides. In reality, a lot of these rides, if you want to survive, you can survive and finish a ride riding 2-3 days a week and maybe 40 miles on the weekend. You're going to struggle. It's going to be hard, but apps like Strava will help you get through that. Another app that I'm not as familiar with is Map My Ride. I used it a couple years ago pretty extensively. It has some of the same features. It does have a pretty robust map. There are two ways you can use Strava. The easiest way to use Strava is to download the app directly to your phone, hop on the bike, and hit start. The good thing about this, it's easy to use. It's right there on your phone. You can watch your progress as you ride. The bad thing about this is it does chew up the phone battery fairly quickly, and if you get out of cell phone range, the GPS is a little rough on the Strava. So the way I prefer to do it is to use a GPS device, such as a Garmin. You can download or Bluetooth the route directly to the data, directly to your Strava on your phone after you're done riding. The Garmin is much more stable out there in the middle of the Flint Hills, easier to use. I would actually suggest you use a Garmin device or GPS device so that if you get in trouble, your phone battery is not dead from using Strava on your phone. One thing that I do like to use on the Strava is the analyze data part of it. I can see the speed for the ride. I can see the elevation that I went up during the ride. I do have a power meter, so I'm able to actually see what wattage I was using for what routes and going up what hills. Another aspect of Strava that I like to use is the flybys. If you watch thecasualcyclist.com, we have every week we do a Tuesday Night Worlds ride. The flybys gives you an overhead view of all the riders who are on that route, so you can kind of see who got dropped, who made it to the end, where they fell off. When I look at the data on the flybys, it helps me make me a better rider too. I know what corners that I need to maybe hit a little harder, and I know what to watch out for. So all of that combined, I believe the social aspect of riding is going to help you this season, whichever race you plan on riding.
So Bob, what? Certainly, there's a lot of technology out there that'll help your training. You can definitely get real social with it and share your rides, and it'll help keep the motivation up for sure.
That's awesome. I was too busy taking a picture of myself with my little selfie camera right here. While I'm on the show, I'm taking selfies. I'm on point all the time. Yeah, I do. Definitely apps are something that has really helped me get motivated this season. Watching friends ride and getting out there and trying to ride with those guys and seeing what routes they're on. So definitely. We do have some questions that have kind of popped up from you guys, actually. So one question was about how to get through some of the water crossings that appeared on a lot of last year's races and events.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, because my first point would always to be safe if you're not sure what the water crossing is like. Just recently, in fact, I tried to cross a low water bridge where the water was only trickling over the bridge just a couple inches. You could see the bottom. I thought, oh, this is no big deal. I've done this a million times. But it was actually really mossy underneath. The wheels went out from underneath of me. Of course, I came unclipped as I was wrecking, and the water actually pushed my bike over the edge and into the creek, and I had to fish it out. So not only is there the safety component to think about, but the water does wreak havoc on your equipment. You're likely going to get wet feet whether you walk through the water or if you ride through it. So that shouldn't be a deterrent. And if you can save your bike while you're doing it, take the extra time, because the race isn't going to be won in the water crossing, but it certainly can be lost there.
Not only that, but you can also kind of wreck the race for other people as you're going through the water crossings. There's a lot of these events that they're getting enough people now that you can be in a pace line deeper into a ride, and I've come through it before where, watch the pace of the riders 2 or 3 people in front of you. Hopefully what they're doing is shifting to a lower gear so they can spin through that water. They're probably slowing down. It'd be real easy to roll up on someone's derailleur as you're coming through that water. And also if you're the lead person, just be ready. A lot of our low water crossings are a little rocky underneath, and some of them have some pretty good holes in them. So.
Yeah, and you're very likely to flat, and like Bobby said, you could even go into a hole that you're not expecting.
Yep. Okay.
When in doubt, walk it.
Next thing I wanted to bring up is we actually have this week in town. You're going to have the DK training camp. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. The Dirty Kansas training camp is this weekend, and that's just another great resource for people to get prepared. It's certainly an extra level, an extra commitment if you're really wanting to have a successful Dirty Kansas. We've talked about the physical components of training, but camp also consists of all the other things that maybe don't necessarily require you to pedal your bike. There's course navigation that you need to train and prepare for. There's nutrition that you need to train and prepare for. So again, whether you're aiming for the win or just trying to finish, there's a lot that goes into it, and camp will certainly prepare folks for that.
One thing I would love to see someday is the actual sprint finish at the DK finish line. I'm usually, 4-5 hours out still by the time the leaders come in. This year at your training camp, you have quite a few past winners, right? You have Dan Hughes coming in, you have Yuri coming in. Is anyone else?
Yeah, for those that know, Yuri is our reigning king of the Kansas, the Dirty Kansas champion in 2015, and he did it in a pretty unusual fashion in a sprint finish, which in the gravel world does not happen often. In fact, in years past, we've had leaders come across basically hand in hand. But I think Dirty Kansas has gotten to the point where there's very few gentlemen's agreements at the when there's first place on the line. So last year we saw a sprint finish that Yuri was able to eke out the win.
Bucket list item. Someday I want to be involved in a sprint finish, whether it's against Yuri, Dan, whoever the champion is at the time, but I want to be involved in a sprint finish someday.
Well, again, Yuri is going to be here this weekend, so you guys can probably go head-to-head drag race this weekend. I think we should set it up.
Can you set that up?
Of course.
You think you don't think I'll be too embarrassed by it?
You wanted to say, you said you wanted to know what it's like. Well, here's the opportunity to take on the sprint king after 200 miles of gravel.
What if I actually win?
Hey, you just might.
All right. Well, Yuri, if you're up for it, I'd love to do a little sprint race with you right here in Emporia, Kansas. So let me know. Okay. Can we just clarify that I did not just call out anybody for a sprint race? You casually said that you could set up a sprint race. I casually said that sure would be fun, and that's all it was.
I think the viewers heard what you were saying.
Yeah, okay. So now that I'm trembling with fear, I want to thank you for watching this episode of This is Gravel, and please tune in next time for our 4th episode. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Thanks.